I rushed home from my work trip when I heard my wife was about to give birth. At the hospital, I saw my brother entering the maternity ward with flowers. I went in and asked at the reception desk. The attendant said, "This gentleman's baby was born this morning." You know that feeling when your phone rings at 3 in the morning and your stomach drops before you even see the screen? That's how this story starts. I was in Singapore, fourth night of a week-long business trip, negotiating a partnership deal that could make or break my company's expansion into Southeast Asia. The hotel room was one of those sterile luxury spaces. White sheets, abstract art, a view of the harbor that cost more per night than most people's monthly rent. I'd been awake anyway, staring at spreadsheets, when my phone lit up with my mother-in-law's contact photo. "Daniel," she said, and her voice had that edge I'd learned to recognize. Patricia didn't panic easily. "You need to come home. Now." My wife Emma had gone into labor. 6 weeks early. The world tilted. I was on my feet before I consciously decided to stand, already pulling clothes from the closet with one hand while keeping the phone pressed to my ear with the other. "Is she okay? Is the baby—" "They're both stable, but Daniel, it's happening fast. The doctor said—" Her voice cracked. Patricia, who'd raised 3 children and buried a husband without shedding a public tear, actually cracked. "You need to be here." I threw money at the problem. That's what you do when you have it and time is the enemy. First-class ticket on the next flight out, a car service meeting me at the airport, messages firing off to my business partner Marcus to handle the Singapore deal without me. None of it mattered. The numbers, the contracts, the careful negotiations, all of it dissolved into background noise the moment Patricia said those words. "You need to be here." The flight was 14 hours of purgatory. I tried to sleep. Failed. Tried to work. Failed at that, too. My laptop screen glowed with unanswered emails, but all I could see was Emma's face the morning I'd left for this trip. She'd been standing in our kitchen, 8 months pregnant, wearing my old college sweatshirt that barely stretched over her belly. The sunrise was coming through the window behind her, turning her dark hair copper at the edges. "6 days?" she'd said, holding up her fingers. "You'll be back in 6 days, and this little guy—" She'd patted her stomach. "Isn't due for another 6 weeks. We have time." I'd kissed her goodbye, promised to call every night, promised to bring back those mango candies she'd been craving from the Asian market near my hotel. 6 weeks early. The flight attendant offered me champagne. I took whiskey instead, neat, and let it burn. Through the window, the Pacific Ocean stretched below us, black and infinite. Somewhere down there, international waters became national ones, and distant became close, and I was still impossibly far from where I needed to be. My brother Michael had texted me while I was in the air. The message came through when we landed for a layover in Tokyo. "Heard about Emma. I'm here if you need anything, bro. Family's got your back." Michael, 3 years younger than me, still living in our hometown while I'd moved to the city for work. We'd grown up sharing a bedroom in our parents' split-level ranch, playing basketball in the driveway until the streetlights came on, stealing each other's clothes and CDs, and later, girlfriends. In that way brothers do when they're young and stupid and think competition is the same as love. We'd gotten closer as adults. Or so I thought. He'd been my best man when Emma and I got married 4 years ago. Stood up there in a rented tux that didn't quite fit his broader shoulders, made a speech about how I'd finally found someone too good for me, and everyone laughed because it was true. Emma was too good for me. Beautiful and sharp and kind in ways I'd never quite learned to be. Michael had been at our house 3 weeks ago helping me paint the nursery. Pale yellow walls because we'd decided not to find out the gender. Wanted to be surprised? He'd gotten more paint on himself than the walls. And Emma had laughed at us from the doorway, her hands on her belly, calling us both hopeless. "Family's got your back." I stared at that text for longer than I should have, there in the Tokyo airport lounge, and felt something warm settle in my chest. Whatever was happening, whatever emergency had pulled me away from the biggest deal of my career, at least I wasn't alone in it. At least Emma wasn't alone. The second leg of the flight was shorter, but felt longer. I watched the flight tracker obsessively, watched that little plane icon crawl across the screen toward home. Checked my phone every 10 minutes, even though I knew I wouldn't have service at 30,000 feet. My leg bounced. The businessman next to me gave me an annoyed look, and I didn't care. We landed at 6:47 a.m. local time. I'd been traveling for 19 hours when you factored in the layover. 19 hours of airports and airplane coffee, and That particular kind of exhaustion that comes from sitting still while your mind races in circles. I hadn't showered, hadn't shaved, was still wearing the button-down shirt I'd thrown on in Singapore, now wrinkled and smelling of recycled air and stress sweat. The car service was waiting. I gave him the hospital name, St. Catherine's Medical Center, and he nodded and pulled into traffic without commentary. Professional. I appreciated that. The sun was just coming up, turning the city gold and pink, and I watched it through the window while my phone finally reconnected to the network and came alive with notifications. 17 missed calls, 33 text messages. My hands were shaking when I opened them. Most were from Emma's family. Patricia, asking for updates on my flight. Emma's sister Kate saying they were at the hospital, everything was okay. Just hurry. Emma's aunt, her cousin, her college roommate, our whole network mobilizing around this early arrival, this 6 weeks too soon surprise, and 3 messages from Emma herself, sent hours ago. Daniel, it's happening. I'm scared. They're taking me to delivery. I love you. I wish you were here. I pressed my forehead against the car window and concentrated on breathing. There was one more text, timestamped from 40 minutes ago. My mother-in-law again. Baby arrived at 6:15 a.m. 5 pounds, 7 ounces. Emma's resting. They're both okay. Daniel, hurry. A son. We had a son. The car couldn't move fast enough through morning traffics. I watched the city crawl past. Commuters grabbing coffee, joggers in the park, a whole world of people having normal mornings while mine splintered into before and after. Before I was a father. After I was a father. Before I was just Daniel Chen, 34 years old, senior partner at a tech consulting firm, frequent flyer miles and business casual. After I was someone's dad. I'd missed it. The one thing I was supposed to be there for. And I'd missed it. The hospital appeared on the left, a sprawling complex of connected buildings, and the driver pulled up to the main entrance. I was out before the car fully stopped, throwing cash at him without counting it, my carry-on bag forgotten in the back seat. The automatic doors whooshed open. The lobby hit me with that hospital smell, antiseptic and floor wax and something floral trying to mask it all. A volunteer at the information desk started to ask if she could help me, but I was already past her, following the signs for the maternity ward, taking the stairs because the elevator would be too slow. Second floor. Turn left. Follow the blue line on the floor. My heart was hammering, shirt sticking to my back. The fluorescent lights were too bright after the dim airplane cabin, and I squinted against them, my eyes grainy with exhaustion. Around me, the hospital hummed with morning activity, nurses changing shifts, food service carts rattling past, a woman in a wheelchair being guided toward radiology. The maternity ward came into view at the end of the hallway. Soft pink walls, a sign with a cartoon stork. Completely at odds with the clinical efficiency of the rest of the building. Like they'd tried to make this section feel less like a hospital and more like a place where miracles happened. Which I guess was accurate. I was 20 feet from the nurse's station when I saw him. Michael, my brother, walking toward the maternity ward from the opposite direction. Moving with that easy athlete's stride he'd never quite lost from his high school football days. He was wearing jeans and a dark blue jacket, his hair still damp like he'd just showered. And in his hands, flowers. A massive bouquet of pink roses and baby's breath, the cellophane catching the fluorescent light, tied with a white ribbon that said in gold script, "Congratulations." The world went very quiet. You know how in movies, when something important happens, they do that thing where the sound drops out and everything goes slow motion? It's not like that in real life. In real life, everything speeds up. Your brain fires into overdrive, trying to process what your eyes are seeing, trying to make it make sense. Michael was here, at the hospital, at 6-something in the morning with congratulatory flowers. For a second, just a second, I thought maybe he'd come for me. For us, to support his brother during a stressful early delivery, because that's what family does, right? That's what his text had said. Family's got your back. But then I saw his face. He wasn't looking for me. Wasn't scanning the hallway for a travel-rumpled, exhausted brother who just crossed half the world to meet his son. Michael's expression was something else entirely. Focused, intent, almost nervous? He walked straight toward the maternity ward entrance like he belonged there, like he had every right to be there, like he was the father. My feet carried me forward on autopilot. I was moving before I decided to move, closing the distance, my carry-on bag still slung over one shoulder, still in my wrinkled shirt from Singapore, still smelling of airports and panic. Michael reached the entrance, pushed through the doors, disappeared inside. I followed. The maternity ward was smaller than I'd imagined, more intimate. A nurse's station directly ahead, computers and charts, and a woman in purple scrubs typing something. To the left, a hallway with patient rooms. To the right, what looked like a waiting area. Soft music playing from hidden speakers, something instrumental and soothing. New age bullshit that was supposed to keep people calm. I wasn't calm. Michael had stopped at the nurse's station. I watched from just inside the doors as he leaned on the counter, all charm and easy smiles, and said something to the nurse I couldn't quite hear. She smiled back, looked down at her computer, nodded. Room 237, she said, loud enough that I caught it. She's resting, but you can go in. Congratulations. She's resting. Emma was resting. And the nurse was telling my brother he could go in, telling him congratulations. My vision tunneled. The edges went dark and fuzzy, like looking through a cardboard tube. I watched Michael nod, adjust his grip on the flowers, start walking toward the hallway of patient rooms. I stepped forward. Excuse me, I said, and my voice came out wrong. Too loud, too sharp. The nurse looked up, startled. Michael turned. Our eyes met. For a moment, neither of us moved. Michael's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, confusion, and then something else. Something that looked like fear. Daniel, he said. What are you? You're here. Yeah. I kept walking toward him. Toward the nurse's station. My hands had curled into fists without me noticing. I'm here. The nurse was looking between us, clearly sensing the tension but not understanding it. Can I help you? She asked me, her tone careful. Professional. The voice of someone trained to de-escalate. I didn't look at her, kept my eyes on Michael. On my brother, standing there with his flowers and his damp hair and his guilty face. I'm looking for my wife, I said. Emma Chen. She was admitted last night. Had a baby this morning. I watched the nurse's expression change, watched her look at Michael, then back at me, then at her computer screen. Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Room 237, she said slowly. Mrs. Chen is in room 237. Right, I said. So why? I gestured at Michael. Is my brother going there with congratulations flowers? The silence that followed was the kind that rings in your ears. Michael's mouth opened, closed. He looked at the flowers in his hands like he was seeing them for the first time and wasn't sure how they'd gotten there. The nurse cleared her throat. She was older, maybe 50, with kind eyes that had probably seen every kind of family drama the maternity ward had to offer. I'm sorry, she said carefully. There seems to be some confusion. This gentleman arrived about 20 minutes ago and said, What did he say? I interrupted. My voice was still too loud. A door opened somewhere down the hall, and a different nurse poked her head out, checking on the disturbance. Michael set the flowers down on the counter, carefully, like they might explode. Daniel, listen. What did you tell her? I demanded, looking at the nurse. What did he say when he came in? The nurse glanced at Michael, back at me. She looked deeply uncomfortable now, like she was realizing she'd stepped into something much worse than a simple family visit. He has said, she began, then paused, took a breath. He said his baby was born this morning. The words hung in the air between us. His baby, his baby. I heard them, but they didn't compute. Couldn't compute. My brain kept trying to rearrange them into something that made sense, but they wouldn't fit, like trying to force the wrong puzzle piece into place. That's not, I started. Stopped. Looked at Michael. Tell her that's not. Michael's face had gone pale. He wasn't looking at me anymore. Was staring at a spot on the floor somewhere between us, his jaw working like he was trying to find words and coming up empty. Michael? My voice cracked on his name. Tell her. He didn't. The silence stretched. The instrumental music played on, obscenely cheerful. Down the hall, a baby cried, not mine, someone else's, but the sound of it shot through me like electricity. I turned back to the nurse. My hands were shaking now, adrenaline and exhaustion, and something darker flooding my system. "I'm Daniel Chen," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "My wife is Emma Chen. We've been married for 4 years. I was in Singapore on business when she went into labor. I just flew 14 hours to get here. That's my son in there." I pulled out my wallet, fumbled for my ID with numb fingers, slapped it on the counter. Check her charts, check her emergency contacts. "I'm her husband." The nurse looked at the ID, looked at her computer, typed something. Her expression shifted again, confusion giving way to understanding, understanding giving way to something that looked like pity. "Mr. Chen," she said quietly, "I'm so sorry. There was clearly a misunderstanding. Of course you can—" "What did you tell her?" I asked Michael again. Turned to face him fully. "What exactly did you say?" Michael finally looked up, met my eyes, and in his face, I saw something I'd never seen before from my brother. Guilt. Not the sheepish kind, not the caught stealing cookies kind we'd shared as kids. This was something deeper, something that reached all the way down to the foundation of who we were. "Daniel," he said, "we need to talk." "No." The word came out flat, final. "No, we don't need to talk. You need to explain to this nurse that you made a mistake, that you're the uncle, not the—" I couldn't say it, couldn't even form the word. Michael's shoulders slumped. He looked at the flowers on the counter, those cheerful pink roses, and something in his face crumbled. "I can't," he whispered. The floor tilted under me. "You can't," I repeated. Not a question, a statement, trying out the shape of it. "Daniel, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant— it wasn't supposed to—" He ran a hand through his damp hair. "We didn't plan this. It just happened. It just happened." That phrase. That fucking phrase people use when they want to avoid responsibility for their choices. Like they were passive observers to their own lives. Like betrayal was weather, something that just rolled in one day without warning. "How long?" I asked. My voice sounded far away, like it was coming from the end of a long tunnel. Michael didn't answer. "How long?" He closed his eyes. 18 months. 18 months. I did the math automatically, couldn't stop myself. 18 months ago, Emma had been 3 months pregnant. We'd just told our families, had gathered everyone at my parents' house for Sunday dinner, made the announcement over dessert, watched our mothers cry happy tears. Michael had hugged Emma that night, spun her around in the kitchen, told me I was going to be a great dad, and then he'd— "Room 237 is right down the hall," the nurse said gently. She was trying to give me an exit, a way to leave this confrontation and focus on what mattered. "Would you like me to take you to your wife?" I looked at her kind face and professional composure, at the name tag that said Brenda, N in cheerful letters. "No," I said. Brenda blinked. "Mr. Chen, I really think—" "I need to know," I interrupted. Looked back at Michael. "I need to know right now. Is that baby mine?" The question felt like swallowing glass. Michael's silence was answer enough, but I needed to hear it, needed him to say it out loud, make it real, make it something I couldn't pretend I'd misunderstood or imagined in my jet-lagged exhaustion. "Michael, is that baby mine?" My brother opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I don't know," he finally said. Something inside me snapped. I don't remember deciding to move, don't remember crossing the space between us. But suddenly I was there, right in front of him, close enough to smell his cologne. The same cologne we'd both worn since high school, the same bottle I had on my bathroom counter at home. "You don't know," I repeated. "Daniel, you've been sleeping with my wife for 18 months. She just gave birth 6 weeks early, and you don't know if it's your baby or mine?" Brenda had come around the desk now. I could see her in my peripheral vision, could see another nurse joining her. Hospital security would be here soon. Some part of me registered that and didn't care. "We should do this somewhere else," Michael said. "Not here, not—" "Where?" I demanded. "Where should we do this, Michael? In a nice quiet room, over coffee? Should I schedule it in my fucking calendar? Tuesday at 3 p.m. Find out if my brother is my son's father?" "I'm sorry," he said again, helplessly. "Daniel, I'm so sorry." Sorry, he was sorry. I wanted to hit him. Wanted it so badly my hands ached with it. Wanted to feel his nose break under my knuckles. Wanted to watch him fall, wanted to make him hurt the way I was hurting. That's what you're supposed to do, right? When you find out your brother has been betraying you, sleeping with your wife, possibly fathering your child, you're supposed to become violent, become the animal, let rage take over. But I didn't. I just stood there staring at him, while something much worse than anger settled into my bones. Security is on the way, Brenda said quietly. Gentlemen, I need you both to calm down. Has she asked for me? I said. The question came out of nowhere, surprised even me. Emma, since the baby was born, has she asked where I am? Brenda hesitated, glanced at her computer like it might have the answer. I don't have that information, but I'm sure, yes or no. Mr. Chen, I really think you should go see your wife. Whatever's happening here, it can. Has she asked for me? Another pause. Longer this time. Then very quietly, not that I'm aware of. The instrumental music played on. Someone laughed in one of the patient rooms. The world kept turning, kept moving, completely indifferent to the fact that mine had just ended. Mr. Chen? A new voice. Male, authoritative. I turned to see a security guard approaching, one hand resting casually on his belt. I'm going to need you to come with me. I just flew 14 hours to meet my son, I said. Heard how my voice sounded. Raw, broken. I just flew around the world. I understand, the guard said, but we can't have disturbances in the maternity ward. You need to calm down. I am calm, and I was. Eerily calm. The rage had burned out fast, left nothing but ash. I just need to know one thing. I looked at Michael, at my brother who'd shared my bedroom and my clothes and my life for so long and I couldn't remember a time before him. Who'd been at my wedding? Who'd helped paint my nursery 3 weeks ago? Did you love her? I asked. Or was it just something to do? Michael's eyes were red. When had that happened? When had he started crying? I love her, he said. Daniel, I love her. I'm in love with her. And there it was. The truth I'd needed and didn't want. Not a mistake, not a stupid accident, not something that just happened. Love. Real, deliberate, chosen love. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said. Okay. The security guard touched my arm. Let's take a walk, Mr. Chen. I let him guide me away from the nurse's station, away from Michael and his guilty face and his congratulations flowers, away from room 237, where my wife was resting after giving birth to a baby that might not be mine. The guard walked me to a small office down the hall, asked me to sit, told me someone would be with me shortly to discuss the situation. I sat, stared at the wall, listened to my own breathing. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma's mother. Where are you? Emma's asking for you now. Not when she first went into labor, not during delivery, not right after. Now. After I'd already missed everything. After the baby was already here, already real, already born into this mess we'd all made. I typed back, at the hospital, there's been a complication. 3 dots appeared immediately, disappeared, appeared again, then, what kind of complication? Is the baby okay? Baby's fine, I wrote. It's everything else that's complicated. The dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, Daniel, what's going on? I stared at that message for a long time. What was going on, Mom? My wife had been having an affair with my brother for 18 months, had gotten pregnant, and we didn't know who the father was. Had given birth this morning while I was somewhere over the Pacific Ocean, and my brother had arrived before me with flowers, claiming the baby as his. What was going on was that my entire life had been a lie. I didn't text back. Instead, I opened my email, scrolled through the messages from the Singapore trip, the contract negotiations, the partnership deal that had seemed so important 48 hours ago. Found Marcus's last email, sent while I was in the air. Deal fell through. They went with the other firm. I'm sorry, Dee, we gave it our best shot. The deal had fallen through. I'd left Emma alone during a high-risk pregnancy, had missed the birth of my son, had destroyed my marriage and my relationship with my brother, and the deal had fallen through anyway. I laughed. Couldn't help it. The sound came out wrong, too high, too sharp. But once it started, I couldn't stop it. Laughed until my ribs hurt, until tears ran down my face, until the security guard poked his head in to check if I was okay. Fine, I told him. Everything's fine. He didn't look convinced. My phone rang. Emma's mother. I stared at her contact photo. Patricia at our wedding, beaming in her mother of the bride dress, and let it go to voicemail. Rang again. Emma's sister Kate this time, again. Emma's aunt, again. A number I didn't recognize. I turned the phone off, sat in that small office with its motivational posters and artificial plant, and the ghost of other people's crises hanging in the air. Sat there while my son, my maybe son, my might not be son, was somewhere down the hall, small and new and perfect, having his first morning in a world that was already broken. The door opened. A woman in business casual stepped in, hospital administration probably, or social services. She had that particular expression people get when they have to deliver bad news and pretend it's not as bad as it is. Mr. Chen, she said gently, I'm Sarah Michaels. I'm a patient advocate here at St. Catherine's. I understand there's been an unusual situation. That's one way to put it. She sat down across from me, folded her hands on the desk between us like we were having a business meeting. I want you to know that the hospital is here to support you through this. Whatever you need, counseling services, mediation, a quiet space, we can provide. What I need, I said, is a paternity test. Sarah nodded like she'd been expecting this. We can arrange that. It's a simple cheek swab. Results usually come back within a few days. But Mr. Chen, I want to be clear. Legally, you're presumed to be the father. You're married to the mother. Your name will be on the birth certificate, unless there's a challenge, and I'm challenging it, she paused. Are you certain? Because once this process starts, it becomes part of the legal record. Your wife will be notified. There will be court involvement if custody is disputed, and my brother, I interrupted, showed up at this hospital this morning claiming that baby is his. My wife had been having an affair with him for a year and a half, so yes, I'm certain. I need to know if that child is biologically mine. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then, I'm so sorry this is happening to you. Everyone keeps saying that. Because it's true. She pulled out some forms. I'll start the paperwork. You understand this will take a few days? The lab needs time to process the samples. Few days, I repeated. I can do a few days. A lifetime, actually. A few days was nothing compared to the lifetime I'd apparently been living in ignorance. In the meantime, Sarah continued, you have every right to visit the baby if you choose. You're still legally the father unless proven otherwise. And if I'm not, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. She slid the forms across the desk. I need your signature here, and a knock on the door interrupted her. We both looked up. Brenda, the nurse from earlier, stood in the doorway. Her kind face was troubled. Mr. Chen, she said, your wife is asking for you. She's very upset. She knows you're here and she wants to see you. Of course she did. Now that I knew, now that the secret was out. Now she wanted to see me. Tell her I'm busy, said. Brenda's expression shifted to something like surprise. Mr. Chen, she just gave birth. She's emotional and exhausted, and I just found out she's been sleeping with my brother for 18 months, I finished. I'm emotional and exhausted too, so tell her I'm busy. Daniel, a new voice. I looked up to see Emma's mother pushing past Brenda into the small office. Patricia, usually so composed, looked frantic. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smudged like she'd been crying. Daniel, what the hell is going on? Emma is beside herself. She needs you. I stood up, faced my mother-in-law. Did you know? I asked. Patricia stopped short. Know what? About Emma and Michael. The color drained from her face. You did, I said. Not a question, a realization. How long have you known? Daniel, this isn't the time. How long? Patricia. She closed her eyes, opened them. 6 months, she whispered. Emma told me 6 months ago. She was going to end it. She promised me she was going to end it. 6 months. I'd hosted Thanksgiving at our house 4 months ago. Had Michael and his girlfriend over, along with Emma's whole family. We'd all sat around our dining room table, passed dishes, made small talk. Patricia had helped Emma with the cooking. Michael had carved the turkey. His girlfriend, God, his girlfriend, I couldn't even remember her name, had brought wine. And they'd all known. All of them. Sitting there, eating my food, drinking my wine, watching me smile and laugh and play the happy, expectant father. And they'd all known I was being betrayed. Get out, I said quietly. Daniel, get out. Patricia's face crumpled. Please, just talk to Emma. Let her explain. This is more complicated than nothing, I said, and is more complicated than my wife fucking my brother. That's actually pretty straightforward. Daniel! Patricia looked shocked, like she'd never heard me curse before. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe I'd always been too polite, too controlled, too willing to smooth over the rough edges. Not anymore. Out, I repeated, now, before I have security remove you. She left. Brenda hesitated in the doorway, looking between me and Sarah like she wasn't sure who was in charge here. Then she left too, pulling the door closed behind her with a soft click. Sarah cleared her throat. I know this is overwhelming. I need air, I said abruptly. I need to get out of this building. Mr. Chen, I don't think, but I was already moving, already pushing past her toward the door. The hallways blurred past. More nurses, more staff, a doctor with a clipboard who stepped aside without a word. The elevator took too long, so I found the stairs again. Took them two at a time, going down, my breath coming in harsh gasps that had nothing to do with the physical exertion. The lobby, the automatic doors, outside. The morning sun hit me like a slap. It was warmer than I expected, humid, the kind of day that promised a storm later. The parking lot stretched out in front of me, cars glinting in neat rows, people coming and going with flowers and balloons and gift bags. Normal people having normal days, visiting new babies and new mothers and experiencing joy instead of this collapse, this implosion, this bomb going off in the center of my life. I walked. Didn't know where I was going, didn't care, just walked. Past the parking lot, past the ambulance bay, past a bench where someone's grandmother sat smoking a cigarette despite the no smoking on hospital property signs. She watched me pass with knowing eyes. My phone was off, still in my pocket, my wallet too. I had no keys, they were back at home, wherever home was now. Had nothing but the clothes on my back and a marriage that was over and a son who might not be mine. I walked until I found a park across the street from the hospital. Small, mostly grass and a playground and a pond with ducks. Sat down on a bench facing the water, watched the ducks paddle around, oblivious and content. A memory surfaced, unbidden. Michael teaching me to ride a bike. I was 5, he was 8. Our dad was working late again. Our mom was inside with our baby sister. And Michael had decided he was going to be the one to teach me. He'd run alongside me in the driveway, holding the back of my seat, promising he wouldn't let go. You got this, Danny, he'd said. I got you. Then he'd let go anyway, and I'd ridden for 30 glorious seconds before crashing into the mailbox. He'd helped me up, checked me for injuries, put a Band-Aid on my scraped knee. See, he'd said, grinning, you did it. And I'd believed him, believed he'd been there to catch me, that he always would be. I got you. I sat on that park bench while the sun climbed higher and the storm clouds gathered on the horizon, and I thought about all the ways a person can fall. 3 days. That's how long a paternity test takes when you pay for expedited processing. 3 days of living in a hotel room because I couldn't go home, couldn't face the apartment Emma and I had built together. The nursery with its yellow walls, the photos of us on every surface, the life we'd pretended to have. 3 days of silence. I didn't call Emma, didn't call Michael, didn't answer my phone when they called me, which they did. Constantly. Emma's family tried staging an intervention at my hotel. Patricia and Kate showed up in the lobby, asking the front desk to let them up. I told the concierge I wasn't accepting visitors. The concierge, bless him, took one look at my face and understood this wasn't a negotiation. Marcus tried too. My business partner, one of the few people in my life who had no connection to Emma or Michael or the flaming wreckage of my family. He showed up at the hotel bar on day 2, somehow having tracked me down through credit card records or maybe just knowing me well enough to guess which hotel I'd pick. You look like shit, he said, sliding onto the bar stool next to mine. I was on my 3rd whiskey or 4th, I'd lost count. Thanks. The Singapore deal fell through, I heard. We could probably salvage it if you... I don't care about Singapore. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, you want to talk about it? No. Okay. He ordered a beer. We sat there in silence, which was one of the things I appreciated about Marcus. He didn't need to fill every silence with words. Didn't need to fix things or offer advice or tell me it would all be okay. After a while, he said, for what it's worth, I think you're handling this better than most people would. I laughed. It came out bitter. I'm sitting in a hotel bar at 2 in the afternoon drinking whiskey instead of meeting my son. That's handling it better? You haven't killed anyone yet, Marcus pointed out. So yeah, better than most. Day's not over. He smiled, finished his beer, put money on the bar. Call me if you need anything, and I mean anything. A lawyer, a place to crash, someone to help you move your stuff out, oh, whatever. Thanks. I'm serious, D. Don't do this alone. But I was alone. That was the thing nobody seemed to understand. Even surrounded by people, even with Marcus offering help and Emma's family trying to stage interventions and my phone buzzing with calls and texts, I was completely, utterly alone. Because the people I should have been able to trust, my wife, my brother, my family, had all chosen to betray me. Had all sat across from me at dinner tables and made small talk and smiled while keeping this secret. Had all decided, independently or together, that I didn't deserve the truth. So yeah, alone. On day 3, Sarah from the hospital called. Her voice was professional, careful. Mr. Chen, the results are ready. Would you like to come in, or would you prefer we email them to you? Email, I said immediately. Email them. Are you sure? Sometimes it's better to receive this kind of information in person with support. Email, now, please. A pause. Then, I'm sending them now. I was still in that hotel room, sitting on the bed with my laptop open, surrounded by the detritus of 3 days of barely functioning. Room service trays, empty bottles, clothes I'd worn and discarded. The TV was on mute, playing some morning show where beautiful people talked about things that didn't matter. My email refreshed. One new message. Subject line, paternity test results, confidential. I stared at it for a long time. Schrodinger's fatherhood. As long as I didn't open that email, both possibilities existed. I was the father, and I wasn't the father. My son was mine, and he wasn't. My life could be rebuilt, and it couldn't. Once I opened it, the waveform would collapse. Reality would choose. I opened it. Read it once. Read it again. Read it a third time, because the words didn't seem real, didn't seem possible. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. He was mine, my son was my son. I should have felt relief, should have felt joy, should have felt something positive. But all I felt was a different kind of pain. Because if the baby was mine, that meant Emma had been having unprotected sex with both of us. That meant every time we'd made love in the past 18 months, I'd been one of 2. That meant the intimacy I thought we shared wasn't intimate at all. And it meant Michael had genuinely thought the baby might be his. 18 months of my brother sleeping with my wife, hoping for what? That she'd leave me? That they could play house together? That I'd just step aside and let them have their happily ever after? I forwarded the email to 3 people, Emma, Michael, and my lawyer. Yes, I'd gotten a lawyer. That was what I'd been doing for 3 days besides drinking and avoiding phone calls. Finding the best divorce attorney in the city, someone shark-eyed and expensive who'd listened to my story and said, "We're going to destroy her." Her name was Victoria Chen. No relation, she'd assured me with a thin smile. Late 50s, gray hair cut sharp. Suits that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. She'd built her career on high-stakes divorces, the kind where there were businesses and assets and reputations to divide up like spoils of war. Adultery is still fault-based grounds in this state, she'd said during our first meeting. Combined with the paternity question, we have leverage, significant leverage. I don't want leverage, I told her. I want out. You'll want leverage when it comes to asset division. Trust me. Now, with the paternity results in hand, I called her. She picked up on the first ring. I saw the email. Congratulations or condolences. I'm never sure which is appropriate in these situations. What happens now? Now we file for divorce on grounds of adultery. We document everything, dates, times, witnesses. We subpoena phone records, emails, texts. We build an airtight case that she violated the terms of your marriage, and then we take her for everything. I don't want everything, I just want... I stopped. What did I want? You want what you're owed, Victoria finished, which is a fair division of assets, primary custody of your son, and for everyone involved to understand that actions have consequences, yes? Yes, I said. It came out hollow. Good. I'll have papers drawn up by end of day. You'll need to decide how you want her served. I can have them delivered to the hospital, Or we can wait until she's home or hospital, I said. Do it at the hospital. A pause, then admiringly, ruthless. I like it. Consider it done. She hung up. I sat there with my laptop, staring at the paternity results until my phone rang. Emma, I answered. Daniel. Her voice was thick with tears. Daniel, thank God. I've been trying to reach you for 3 days. Where are you? Why won't you come see the baby? His name, I said. What did you name him? What? The baby, our son. What's his name? A confused pause. We were going to decide together, remember? We had that whole list, and we said we'd wait until we saw him to... So he doesn't have a name yet. No, I mean, legally he's Baby Chen, but Daniel, please, can we just... I'll be there in an hour, I said. Don't leave. I hung up before she could respond. Showered for the first time in 3 days. Shaved, put on clean clothes. Looked at myself in the mirror. Still recognizably Daniel Chen, still had my face and my eyes and my hands. But something fundamental had changed. I looked older. Harder. Good. The hospital was only 15 minutes away, but I took my time. Stopped at a coffee shop, sat in my car in the parking lot watching people come and go with their normal problems and normal lives. A teenage girl arguing with her mother about her phone. A businessman on a conference call. A young couple holding hands, laughing about something I couldn't hear. Had Emma and Michael laughed like that? Had they gone on dates, met in hotel rooms? Did he text her good morning? Did she save his contact under a different name in her phone? Did they talk about me? That was the thought that hurt most. Imagining them together, my wife and my brother, talking about me. Poor Daniel. Clueless Daniel. Daniel who worked so hard, who traveled so much, who didn't notice his whole life unraveling around him. I got out of the car, walked into the hospital. Took the elevator this time, standing in the back corner while other visitors chattered about baby names and birth weights and how tired the new mothers looked. A woman next to me was holding a balloon that said, "It's a boy," in blue letters. Second floor, maternity ward. Same cheerful stork signs, same soft pink walls, same instrumental music playing like none of this was real. Different nurse at the station. Younger, name tag said Amy. She smiled when she saw me. Can I help you? Room 237, I said. Emma Chen. Are you family? I'm her husband. Her smile widened. Oh, Mr. Chen, she's been asking about you. Go right in. I walked down the hallway. Past other rooms where other families were having other beginnings. Past a grandmother crying happy tears. Past a father holding his newborn daughter like she might break. Past all of it like a ghost. Room 237. The door was ajar. Through it, I could hear voices. Emma talking to someone, her tone tired but animated. A laugh, then another voice. Male saying something I couldn't quite catch. Michael. My brother was in there. I pushed the door open. The room was bigger than I'd expected. Hospital bed dominating the center. Emma propped up against pillows, wearing a hospital gown and looking exhausted. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup. Face pale. She looked fragile in a way I'd never seen before. And next to the bed, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blue blankets, Michael. They both looked up when I entered. The room went very quiet. Daniel, Emma breathed. Started to sit up, winced, fell back against the pillows. You're here. I closed the door behind me, locked it. The click seemed very loud in the sudden silence. Give me my son, I said to Michael. He hesitated. Daniel, I think we should... Give me my son. Emma made a sound, something between a sob and a gasp. Daniel, please let me explain. There's nothing to explain, I said, still looking at Michael. The paternity test came back. He's mine. So give him to me, now. Michael's face crumbled. He looked down at the bundle in his arms. My son, my baby, 3 days old and already caught in this mess. And for a moment I thought he might refuse, might try to run or fight or somehow claim what wasn't his to claim, but he didn't. He walked over. Carefully, gently, like the baby might shatter, he placed him in my arms. I looked down, my son, he was so small, impossibly small. Wrinkled and red-faced, eyes closed, tiny hands curled into fists. He made a small sound, almost a sigh, and shifted in his blankets. Something in my chest cracked open. Hi, I whispered. Hi, buddy, I'm your dad. His eyes opened. They were dark, unfocused, seeing nothing and everything. We looked at each other, me and this tiny human I'd helped create, and for a moment, just a moment, everything else fell away. Then Emma spoke. Daniel, please let me explain. It's not what you think. I looked up at her. At my wife, the woman I'd loved for 4 years, married for 4 years, built a life with. She looked terrified. It's not what I think, I repeated. Okay, what is it? It was a mistake, all of it. Michael and I, we never meant for it to happen. It just happened, I finished. Right, like you tripped and fell on his dick, multiple times, for 18 months. Emma flinched. Don't be cruel. Cruel. I laughed. The sound made my son, I needed to name him, couldn't keep thinking of him as my son, shift in my arms. I lowered my voice. You think I'm being cruel? Emma, you fucked my brother for a year and a half while I was out building a life for us, while I was working 60-hour weeks so you could afford to take maternity leave, while I was planning our future. And you think I'm being cruel? It's more complicated than that, Michael said quietly. He'd retreated to the corner of the room, hands shoved in his pockets. Daniel, if you'd just listen. I don't want to hear it, I cut him off. I don't want your excuses or your justifications or your fucking apologies. I want you to leave. Daniel, Emma tried. Both of you, I continued. I want you both to leave. Emma's eyes went wide. What? Daniel, I just gave birth. I can't. This is my room. Then I'll leave. I looked down at my son, at his tiny, perfect face. And I'm taking him with me. You can't, Emma said immediately. Daniel, you can't just take him. I'm breastfeeding. He needs. Formula exists. Please. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. Please don't do this. Don't take him away from me. I met her eyes, saw the panic there, the fear, the desperate calculation of someone who knew they'd fucked up and was trying to find a way back. There wasn't one. You took everything from me, I said quietly. My marriage, my brother, my trust. The future I thought we were building, you took all of it, Emma. So yes, I'm taking him. He's the only thing in this mess that's actually mine. Daniel, please. A knock on the door interrupted her. We all froze. Mrs. Chen? A nurse's voice, Amy from the desk. Is everything okay in there? I walked to the door, unlocked it, opened it with my son still cradled in my left arm. Amy looked surprised to see me. Looked at the baby, at Emma crying in the bed, at Michael standing frozen in the corner. Do you need anything? Yes. Yes, I said. I need you to call security, and I need to know what paperwork I have to file to take my son home. Emma made a sound like she'd been punched. Amy looked very uncomfortable. Mr. Chen, I'm not sure. Typically, we discharge mother and baby together, and my lawyer will be in touch about custody arrangements, I said. In the meantime, I'm the legal father. The paternity test confirms it. So what do I need to sign? Daniel, stop. Michael stepped forward. You're upset, I get it, but you can't just what? I turned to face him. Can't just take my son? Can't just protect him from people who lie and cheat and betray? Can't just remove him from a situation where his mother is a proven adulterer and his uncle thought he might be his father? You're being irrational, Michael said. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, the only rational thing I can do is get my son as far away from both of you as possible. Emma was sobbing now, huge gasping sobs that shook her whole body. The heart rate monitor beeped faster. Amy looked alarmed. Mr. Chen, you're upsetting the patient. I really need you to. I'm leaving, I said. Just tell me what I need to sign. Took another hour, an hour of paperwork and legal disclaimers and phone calls to hospital administration, an hour of Emma crying and Michael trying to negotiate and me standing firm while holding my son, who slept through all of it, oblivious to the chaos he'd been born into. The hospital wasn't happy about it. Neither was Emma's family, who showed up en masse once someone called them. Patricia tried reasoning with me. Kate tried guilt. Emma's aunt actually tried to grab the baby out of my arms until security stepped in. But in the end, I was the legal father. The paternity test proved it. And as long as there was no custody agreement in place yet, I had as much right to him as Emma did. More, actually, given that I wasn't the one who'd committed adultery. Victoria, my lawyer, showed up too. She'd brought a junior associate and a briefcase full of documents, moved through the hospital like a shark through water, all efficiency and sharp edges. This is highly unusual, the hospital administrator kept saying. A man in his 60s, balding, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. We typically don't discharge infants without their mothers unless there's a medical necessity or court order. My client, Victoria said smoothly, is removing his son from a hostile situation. The mother engaged in an extramarital affair with the father's brother. The environment is toxic, potentially dangerous. Dangerous? Emma's voice, hoarse from crying. I'm not dangerous. I'm his mother. Victoria gave her a look that could have cut glass. You're an adulterer who's been lying to your husband for 18 months. Who's to say what else you're capable of? This is insane, Kate said. Emma just gave birth. She needs her baby. Daniel, please be reasonable. But I was done being reasonable. Done being the nice guy, the understanding husband, the one who smoothed over conflicts and made peace. That version of Daniel Chen had died 3 days ago in this same hospital, watching his brother carry congratulations flowers to his wife's maternity room. This version? This version took his son and walked out. They gave me supplies, formula, bottles, diapers, a car seat that one of the nurses helped me install because I'd never done it before and my hands were shaking. Gave me instructions on feeding schedules and sleep positions and when to call the pediatrician, and gave me pamphlets about newborn care and postpartum support and how to swaddle properly. I took it all, nodded along, pretended I wasn't terrified. 'Cause I was terrified. 3 days ago, I'd been flying home to meet my son, excited and nervous and prepared. Had read all the books, taken the classes, set up the nursery, had a plan. Now I was walking out of a hospital with a 3-day-old baby, no plan at all, and a future that looked nothing like what I'd imagined. Emma called after me as I left. Daniel, Daniel, please, don't do this. Please. I didn't turn around. Michael tried to block the door, stood there with his arms spread, looking desperate. You can't do this to her. To him. Daniel, he needs his mother. He needs parents who aren't liars, I said. Move. I love her, Michael said. I know you don't want to hear it, but I love her. This wasn't we didn't plan this. It just happened. And then we couldn't stop. And you could have stopped, I interrupted. Every day for 18 months, you both could have stopped, could have told me, could have ended it, could have done the right thing. You didn't. So move, or I'll have you arrested for preventing me from leaving with my son. He moved. The car ride back to my hotel was surreal. My son, I still needed a name, had to pick a name, slept in his car seat. I kept checking the rearview mirror, terrified he'd stop breathing, that something was wrong, that I'd somehow broken him already. But he was fine. Breathing easy, tiny chest rising and falling, occasionally making those small sounds babies make. I pulled into the hotel parking lot, sat there for a moment, looking at him in the rearview mirror. Well, I said, it's just you and me now, buddy. He didn't respond, obviously, just slept on, unconcerned. I carried him inside. The hotel staff looked confused. I'd checked in 3 days ago as a single businessman, and now I was returning with an infant. But they didn't ask questions. Just watched me cross the lobby with careful, neutral expressions. The room was still a disaster. I set the car seat down, looked around at the mess I'd been living in, and realized I couldn't bring a baby into this. I spent the next hour cleaning, throwing away room service trays, opening windows, making the space somewhat livable. My son woke up halfway through, started crying, and I had to figure out formula. Mixed it according to the instructions the hospital had given me. Tested the temperature on my wrist like I'd seen in movies. Held him while he drank. He was so small in my arms, so trusting. Looked up at me with those unfocused dark eyes like I knew what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. Had no idea how to change a diaper properly. No idea how to tell if he was too hot or too cold. No idea what his different cries meant or how to soothe him or any of it. But I was his father, and I was going to figure it out. After he finished the bottle, I changed his diaper, badly, but it stayed on. Swaddled him, also badly. Held him against my chest while he fell back asleep, his tiny heart beating against mine. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Emma. Michael, Emma's family, even my own mother, who'd somehow heard what happened and was calling to tell me I was making a mistake. I turned it off again, sat in that hotel room with my son, just the two of us, while outside the storm that had been threatening all morning finally broke. Rain hammered against the windows. Thunder rolled in the distance. And I thought about names. We'd had a list. Emma and I had spent weeks compiling it, debating the merits of each option. Traditional names, modern names, family names. We'd narrowed it down to 5 finalists, planned to decide once we saw him. I pulled up the list on my laptop, looked at each name in turn. None of them felt right. They were from before. From when I thought we were building this together, from when I thought my son would have 2 parents who loved each other, a stable home, a normal life. That wasn't his reality anymore. His reality was this: a hotel room, a father who didn't know what he was doing, and a family that had already imploded before he was old enough to understand it. I needed a name that meant something different, something that acknowledged the truth of how he'd come into this world, even if he'd never know it. After a while, I found it. Asher, I said softly, testing it out. Your name is Asher. It meant blessed or fortunate in Hebrew. An act of defiance, maybe, or hope, or just denial. Because looking at him, and at this tiny, perfect human who'd done nothing wrong, who was innocent of every sin his mother and uncle had committed, he was blessed. He was fortunate. He was me. Asher Chen, I whispered. That's you. He shifted in his sleep, made a small sound. I held him closer and started planning. The thing about revenge, and I don't care what movies or books try to tell you, is that it's not satisfying in the moment. It doesn't feel good to hurt the people who hurt you. It doesn't solve anything or make you whole again, but it's necessary. Not for them, for you. Because without it, without some form of justice, you just sit there carrying the weight of what they did, carrying it forever, letting it crush you, defining your entire existence by the ways they broke you. I wasn't going to let that happen. The next 2 weeks were a blur of logistics and rage. First, housing. I couldn't raise a newborn in a hotel room. Couldn't go back to the apartment Emma and I had shared. So I found a short-term rental through a corporate housing service, a furnished 2-bedroom in a different part of the city, neutral and generic, and exactly what I needed. Somewhere with no memories attached. Marcus helped me move my stuff out of the old apartment. We did it while Emma was still at her mother's, recovering. I took only what was mine: clothes, laptop, books, the framed photo of my parents from my nightstand. Left everything else. The furniture, the dishes, the decor Emma had chosen. The life we'd built. I did take everything from the nursery, though. Every piece of furniture, every stuffed animal, every tiny outfit. Dismantled it carefully and moved it to the new place. That was mine. That was for Asher. You okay? Marcus asked, watching me pack up the crib. No. Fair enough. He grabbed another box. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Leaving her? Documenting everything. Because that's what I'd been doing. Documenting, building a case. Victoria had been very clear. If I wanted full custody, wanted to ensure Emma paid for what she'd done, I needed evidence. Not just of the affair. We had that, and had Michael's own admission on the hospital security footage, but of everything. Her fitness as a mother, her judgment, her character. People think divorce is about emotion, Victoria had said during one of our strategy sessions. It's not. It's about documentation. Whoever has the better paper trail wins. So I documented. Started with phone records. Victoria subpoenaed both Emma's and Michael's going back 2 years. The results came in thick manila envelopes, page after page of call logs and text message timestamps. The patterns were obvious once you knew what to look for. Calls late at night when I was traveling. Clusters of texts during my work hours. Long conversations on weekends when I was supposedly playing golf or at the gym. They'd been so careful in some ways. Never called each other by name in texts, used code words and inside jokes. But they'd also been sloppy. There were gaps in Emma's location data that lined up perfectly with Michael's. Hotel charges on his credit cards that matched dates when Emma had said she was out with friends. This is good, Victoria said, reviewing the documents. Very good. The affair is ironclad. But we need more. More. Evidence of how this affected her pregnancy care. Evidence that she put her own desires above the baby's well-being. Did she miss any prenatal appointments? I checked. She had. 3 appointments while I was traveling, appointments she'd claimed to attend, but the medical records showed she'd canceled. Where was she instead? I didn't want to know. But Victoria made me find out. Michael's credit card records again. Hotel in the suburbs on one date. Restaurant across town on another. A matinee movie. Who goes to a matinee movie in the middle of the day when they're supposed to be at a prenatal appointment? People having an affair. That's who. Perfect, Victoria said. This shows negligence. Prioritizing the affair over her unborn child's health. Keep digging. I kept digging, found emails. Emma had been smart enough not to use her personal account, but she'd set up a separate Gmail just for communicating with Michael. I only found it because she'd logged into it once from our shared laptop and forgot to log out. The emails were worse than the texts. More detailed, more intimate. I read them all, every single one. Made myself read them even though each word felt like swallowing glass. I can't stop thinking about yesterday. The way you touched me. I know this is wrong, but it doesn't feel wrong. It feels like maybe this is how it was always supposed to be. Daniel's in Singapore again. Come over tonight, please. I need to see you. What are we going to do? I can't keep living like this. I love you, but I love him too. I don't know how to choose. That one stopped me. I love him too, not loved, love, present tense. She'd written that 6 months ago, around the time she'd told her mother about the affair, around the time Patricia said Emma had promised to end it. She'd loved me. Past tense now, probably. After everything I'd done, taking Asher, moving out, filing for divorce. But 6 months ago, she'd still loved me, just not enough to stop. I forwarded all the emails to Victoria, tried not to think about the fact that I'd spent 18 months completely oblivious to this parallel life my wife was living. Tried not to imagine her typing those emails while I was in the next room, working late, trusting her. This is excellent work, Victoria said. We're building an airtight case. But I want to talk about your end goal here. What do you actually want from this divorce? Everything, I said immediately. She raised an eyebrow. Everything? Full custody, the apartment. She can have it, I don't care. But everything else, the savings, the investments, my business, said it's stay mine. And I want her to know exactly what she lost. All right. Victoria made notes. We can pursue full custody based on the affair and her negligence during pregnancy. Adultery is fault-based grounds in this state. So we have leverage in asset division, but Daniel, she looked up, oh, are you sure about this? Full custody of a newborn is rare. Courts prefer split custody arrangements. We can push for it, but it's going to be a fight. I don't care. She's going to argue that you're being vindictive, that you're using Asher as punishment. Am I asked? Or am I protecting him from a mother who prioritized an affair over her pregnancy? Who lied for 18 months? Who exposed me to potential STDs without my knowledge or consent? Who created an unstable home environment? Victoria smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I'm going to use that exact argument in court. Well done. While Victoria built the legal case, I built the personal one. Started a document, a detailed timeline of every lie, every inconsistency, every moment where I should have known something was wrong but didn't. Went back through photos on my phone, social media posts, calendar events. Reconstructed 18 months of betrayal. Some of it was obvious in hindsight. Photos of family gatherings where Michael and Emma stood just a little too close. A Christmas party where I'd caught them laughing together in the kitchen, and Emma had seemed flustered when I walked in. That weekend, Michael's girlfriend had broken up with him, and he'd come over to our place to commiserate, and Emma had been so sympathetic, so concerned. That must have been early in the affair, maybe even the first time. I remembered that night, remembered going to bed early because I had an early morning meeting, remembered Emma saying she'd stay up with Michael for a bit, help him feel better. Had they fucked that night, in my own house while I slept upstairs? The thought made me physically ill. I added it to the document anyway. Other evidence was harder to spot, but I found it. Credit card charges for lingerie I'd never seen Emma wear. A charge at a pharmacy for Plan B, emergency contraception, from 8 months ago. That one hit differently. They'd been careless. They'd known they were being careless. And neither of them had bothered to tell me I might be at risk. I got tested, STD panel, full workup. Came back clean, thank God. But the violation of it, the fact that I'd had to get tested, that I'd had to sit in that clinic waiting room, wondering if my wife had given me something that was its own special kind of betrayal. Added that to the document, too. During all of this, I was also learning to be a single father when Asher didn't care about my revenge plans or legal strategy or carefully documented evidence. Asher cared about being fed every 3 hours, having his diaper changed, being held when he cried, and not much else. I was terrible at it initially. Couldn't figure out why he was crying half the time. Couldn't get him to sleep for more than an hour at a stretch. Couldn't do anything without second-guessing myself. Worried I was somehow fucking him up already. But I learned, taught myself through trial and error and too many 3 a.m. Google searches. Figured out that he liked being swaddled tight, but not too tight. That he calmed down when I held him against my chest and hummed. That his cry at 2 a.m. was different from his cry at 4 a.m., and both were different from his hungry cry. Marcus came by sometimes, brought food, made sure I was eating, held Asher while I showered or did laundry or just sat and stared at the wall. "You're doing good," he'd say. I wasn't sure I believed him. Emma called constantly, left voicemails begging to see Asher, to explain, to fix this. I didn't answer. Victoria had advised me to keep all communication through lawyers, and I was following that advice religiously. Her voicemails progressed through stages. First, desperate apologies, then anger, then back to desperation, then threats. "You can't keep my son from me. I'm his mother. I have rights. My lawyer says you're in violation of..." Delete. "Daniel, please, I know you're angry, but this isn't fair to Asher. He needs his mother. You're being selfish. You're letting your ego..." Delete. "I love you. I know you don't believe me, but I do. I love you. What happened with Michael, it was a mistake. I ended it. I swear I ended it. If you just let me see Asher, let me prove that I can..." Delete. Michael called too. Less frequently, but when he did, his voicemails had a different tone. Less desperate, more defeated. "I know you hate me. You should. I hate myself. I need you to know I never wanted to hurt you. Never wanted any of this. I loved her, and I still do, but I love you too. You're my brother. You're..." A long pause. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm sorry. That doesn't fix anything, I know, but I'm sorry. I listened to that one twice, then deleted it. My parents called too, wanted to meet Asher, wanted to understand what happened, wanted probably to tell me I was being too harsh, too unforgiving. I sent them a photo of Asher instead, told them we'd visit when things settled down. Didn't elaborate on when that might be. 3 weeks after Asher was born, Victoria called with news. Emma's filing for custody, visitation at minimum. Her lawyer is arguing that you've denied her access to her child without cause, and she wants a court order forcing shared custody immediately. What are our chances? Of blocking it entirely? Low. Family courts favor mothers, especially with newborns. But we can limit it. We can push for supervised visitation only, citing the affair and her negligence during pregnancy. Make her work for more access. Do it. There's something else. Victoria paused. Michael has also filed a motion with the court. He's claiming he has rights as, and I quote, "a person with significant emotional investment in the child's well-being." I laughed. Couldn't help it. He has no right. The paternity test proved. I know, his lawyer knows it too. This is a Hail Mary, trying to maintain some connection. The judge will throw it out, but it shows their strategy. They're trying to frame this as you being vindictive and keeping a child from people who love him. People who love him, I repeated. His mother, who lied for 18 months. His uncle who fucked her. Yeah, that's real love. Save that anger for the courtroom, Victoria advised. We have a hearing in 2 weeks. That's when custody will be formally decided. In the meantime, document everything, every feeding, every diaper change, every time Asher smiles or sleeps or cries. Show that you're a capable, present father. So I documented that, too. Started a baby journal, not the cheerful kind you're supposed to keep, full of milestones and cute photos. A detailed log of care. Times, durations, observations, medical professional level of detail. 7:30 a.m. Bottle, 3 ounces formula, consumed entirely. Burped successfully. Diaper change, no rash. Alert and calm. 10:45 a.m. Bottle, 3 ounces formula, consumed 2.5 ounces. Some gas, worked it out. Nap from 11 o'clock to 12:30. 2 o'clock p.m. Bottle, 3 ounces formula. Consumed entirely. Diaper change. Tummy time for 10 minutes. Seemed to enjoy it on and on every day. Building a record that showed I was present, attentive, capable. That Asher was thriving under my care, because he was. He'd gained weight since leaving the hospital. His color was good. His sleep was normalizing. The pediatrician said he was doing great, hitting all his early milestones. I was doing this. Somehow, impossibly, I was doing this. Late at night, during the 3 a.m. feedings when it was just me and Asher in the dim light of the nursery, I'd look at him and wonder what I was building here. Was it justice, revenge, protection? Maybe all three. Maybe none. Maybe I was just trying to construct something solid from the rubble of my life. And Asher was the only foundation left standing. One night, when he was a month old, I was changing his diaper when he looked up at me and smiled. Not gas, not a reflex. A real smile. Eyes crinkling, tiny gums showing. A smile for me. His dad. I had to sit down. Just sat there on the floor of the nursery with him in my lap. This tiny human who trusted me completely. Who had no idea what his entrance into the world had cost, and I cried. For the first time since this whole thing started, I cried. For what was lost. For what I'd never get back. For the future Asher should have had and wouldn't. For the brother I'd lost, and the wife who'd betrayed me, and the innocence we'd all destroyed. But also, and this was the strange part, for what remained. Because I still had him. Still had this small, perfect person who depended on me, who I was learning to care for, who made sounds that might become words someday, and who would eventually call me Dad. That was something. Not enough to fix everything. Not enough to make the betrayal hurt less or the anger disappear, but something. I held him close, memorizing the weight of him, the warmth, the milk and baby powder smell of his hair. You and me, I whispered, we're going to be okay. I don't know how yet, but we're going to be okay. He made a small sound that might have been agreement, or gas. With babies, it was hard to tell. I put him back in his crib, watched him settle into sleep, arms thrown up above his head in that trusting way newborns have. Then I went back to my laptop, back to the documentation, back to building the case that would determine our future. The court date was in 2 weeks. I had work to do. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, not the grand chambers you see on TV, all wood paneling and high ceilings. Just a modest room with fluorescent lights, metal detectors at the entrance, and the particular smell of old buildings and stale coffee. I arrived early with Victoria. She was in her element here. Sharp gray suit, briefcase, expression that said she'd won before and would win again. I was wearing my best suit too, the one I'd worn to close the Singapore deal that never happened. Felt like armor now. Emma was already there when we entered. I saw her before she saw me. She was sitting with her lawyer, a woman named Sharon something, younger than Victoria, nervous energy. Emma looked different, thinner, exhausted in a way that wasn't just new mother tired. She'd lost weight, and her eyes had that hollow quality you get from crying too much. Next to her, Michael, my brother, who legally had no right to be here, no standing in this case, but Emma's lawyer had apparently allowed him to sit with them for moral support. The gall of it. Victoria touched my arm. Don't react. Don't give them anything. I didn't react. Just walked to our table on the opposite side of the room, set down my own briefcase, filled with the documentation, the evidence, the careful record of the past month, and waited. Emma's eyes found mine across the room. For a moment, we just looked at each other. All the history between us. The good years, the wedding, the pregnancy, the plans we'd made, all of it hanging in the air like smoke. Then she looked away, and I felt nothing. That was new. For weeks, I'd felt everything. Anger, betrayal, hurt so deep it was physical. But looking at her now in this courtroom, about to fight over our son, I felt nothing. Empty, maybe that was worse. The judge entered, a woman in her 60s, Judge Margaret Reeves, with gray hair pulled back and reading glasses hanging on a chain around her neck. She looked tired. Probably dealt with cases like this every day, families falling apart, children caught in the middle, everyone claiming the moral high ground. Be seated, she said. We all sat. This is a preliminary custody hearing in the matter of Chen v. Chen regarding minor child Asher Chen. I've reviewed the briefs from both parties. Mrs. Chen, you're seeking full custody with visitation for the father? Sharon stood. Yes, Your Honor. My client gave birth 5 weeks ago and has been denied access to her son for all but 3 days of his life. Mr. Chen has blocked all communication, ignored requests for visitation, and has essentially kidnapped. Careful, Judge Reeves warned. There's been no kidnapping. Mr. Chen is the legal father. Yes, Your Honor, but he's using the child to punish my client for having an affair with his brother, Victoria interrupted, standing, which is documented extensively. My client isn't punishing anyone. He's protecting his son from an unstable environment. Judge Reeves held up a hand. I'll hear arguments in due course. First, I want to address something. Mr. Chen, she looked at Michael. Why are you here? Michael stood awkwardly. I'm the baby's uncle. I'm here to support Emma. I mean, Mrs. Chen. You're the uncle who had an affair with the mother. Yes, ma'am. Then you have no place in these proceedings. Please leave. Michael looked at Emma, at Sharon, at me. His face was red, humiliated. I just want to... Now, Mr. Chen. He left. Walked out with his shoulders hunched, and I watched him go and felt that same nothing. Once the door closed behind him, Judge Reeves turned back to us. Now, let's start with the current arrangement. Mr. Chen, you've had full physical custody of the minor child since his discharge from the hospital, correct? I stood. Yes, Your Honor. And Mrs. Chen, you've had no contact with the child in that time? Emma stood, and her voice cracked. 3 days. I had 3 days with my son, and then my husband took him and disappeared. I don't know where he lives now. I don't know if my baby is okay. I don't know. She broke off, crying. Sharon put a hand on her shoulder, and Judge Reeves's expression softened, but only slightly. Mr. Chen, why did you remove the child from his mother's care? Victoria stood before I could. Your Honor, my client removed Asher from the hospital due to immediate concerns about the mother's fitness. Mrs. Chen had been engaged in an extramarital affair for 18 months, including during her pregnancy. This affair was with Mr. Chen's brother, creating an extremely unstable and emotionally toxic environment. Additionally, she pulled out documents from our briefcase, hospital records, credit card statements, the emails. Mrs. Chen missed multiple prenatal appointments while meeting her affair partner. She prioritized the affair over the health and safety of her unborn child. My client had every reason to believe that leaving Asher in Mrs. Chen's care would be detrimental to his well-being. Sharon jumped up. That's an outrageous characterization. My client missed 3 appointments over 9 months. 3, and she rescheduled all of them. There was no danger to the baby. 3 appointments she missed to be with another man, Victoria countered, while lying to her husband about where she was, demonstrating a pattern of deceit and poor judgment. Your Honor, Sharon said desperately, my client made a mistake. She admits that freely. The affair was wrong, but she's an excellent mother. She's bonded with Asher. She's breastfeeding, or was before he was taken from her. She has the right to... Rights have to be balanced against the child's best interests, Victoria interrupted. And it's not in Asher's best interest to be in the care of someone who demonstrated such flagrant disregard for his well-being before he was even born. Judge Reeves held up her hand again. Enough. I want to review these documents. Court will recess for 30 minutes while I read through the evidence. She left. We all sat. Emma was still crying. I could hear her across the room, these soft, broken sounds. Part of me wanted to feel something about it, sympathy maybe, or satisfaction. But there was just that hollow nothing. Victoria leaned over. This is going well. The judge is taking our evidence seriously. What happens if we win? If we win full custody, Emma gets supervised visitation maybe a few hours a week. You maintain primary physical custody and make all major decisions about Asher's upbringing. She pays child support. And if we lose? We won't lose, Victoria said. But worst case scenario, joint custody. 50-50 split. You'd have to coordinate with her on everything. The thought of that made my stomach turn. Coordinating with Emma. Seeing her multiple times a week. Watching her play happy mother while knowing what she'd done. Having Asher grow up thinking this was normal, that his family was just complicated, never knowing the truth of how he'd been conceived in the middle of his parents' destruction. I couldn't do that. Wouldn't. After 30 minutes, Judge Reeves returned. We all stood. She looked at me first, then at Emma, then down at the papers on her bench. I've reviewed the evidence submitted by both parties, she began. This is a difficult case. On one hand, We have a mother who, by all accounts, has bonded with her child, who wants to be present in his life, who has committed no crime, and whose only fault is a marital affair, something regrettable, but not in itself grounds for completely severing her parental rights. Emma's face lit up with hope. Judge Reeves continued, on the other hand, we have a father who has demonstrated exceptional care for a newborn under difficult circumstances. Mr. Chen's documentation of Asher's care over the past month is remarkable. The baby is thriving. He's attending all medical appointments. His father is clearly devoted to his well-being. The hope in Emma's face started to fade. The affair itself is concerning, not because of moral judgment, but because of what it reveals about Mrs. Chen's judgment during her pregnancy. The missed appointments, the lies, the creation of an unstable home environment, these factors do weigh in Mr. Chen's favor. Sharon started to stand, to object, but Judge Reeves cut her off with a look. However, she said, I'm also troubled by Mr. Chen's complete denial of access. Regardless of the circumstances that led to this situation, Mrs. Chen is Asher's mother. She has rights. And unless there's evidence of abuse or neglect, which there isn't, those rights must be protected. My stomach sank. Therefore, Judge Reeves concluded, I'm ordering a shared custody arrangement with primary physical custody to Mr. Chen. Mrs. Chen will have supervised visitation twice weekly, 3 hours per visit. After 3 months, we'll reconvene to assess whether unsupervised visitation is appropriate. Both parents will attend family counseling. And Mr. Chen, she looked directly at me. You will provide Mrs. Chen with your address and contact information. The secrecy ends today. Victoria stood. Your Honor, my client has serious concerns about... I've made my ruling, Judge Reeves said firmly. Mr. Chen, I understand you're angry. You have every right to be. But that child didn't ask to be born into this mess, and he deserves to know both his parents. You don't have to forgive your wife. You don't have to reconcile. But you do have to co-parent. Figure it out. She banged her gavel. It was over. We left the courtroom in silence. Victoria tried to spin it as a partial victory. Primary custody was something, at least. But I couldn't hear her. Could only think about what came next. Supervised visitation twice a week. Emma back in Asher's life. Coordinating schedules, exchanging information, seeing her face regularly. Playing nice for the sake of our son. In the parking lot, I stood by my car, keys in hand, staring at nothing. Daniel. I turned. Emma was walking toward me, alone. Sharon must have told her this was a bad idea, but she'd come anyway. She looked smaller than I remembered, fragile. Don't, I said. Whatever you're going to say, don't. I just want to thank you, she said quietly, for taking care of him. Asher, I know you're doing a good job. I can tell from what the judge said. I didn't respond. And I need you to know that I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know you'll never forgive me, but I am sorry. For all of it. Are you sorry you did it? I asked. Or sorry you got caught? She flinched. Both. At least she was honest. I loved you, she continued. I still love you. What happened with Michael, I didn't stop loving you. Just what? I interrupted. Just decided one person wasn't enough. Just wanted to see what you could get away with. Just didn't think I'd find out. I didn't think at all, she said. That's the problem. It happened and then it kept happening and I couldn't stop. Didn't want to stop, even though I knew it was destroying everything. Why? The question came out hoarse. Why him? Why my brother? Emma was quiet for a long time then, because he looked at me like you used to, before work took over, before I was just the pregnant wife waiting at home, and he made me feel what? Seen, she whispered. I felt seen. I laughed bitterly. So this is my fault? Because I worked too much? Because I was building a life for us? No, it's not your fault. It's mine. All mine. I'm just trying to explain. I don't want your explanations, I cut her off. I don't want your apologies or your justifications or your attempts to make me understand. I want you to leave me alone, except for the 2 visits a week the judge ordered. That's it. That's all I can give you. Okay, she said softly. Okay. She turned to go, then stopped. Can I see a photo of him? Of Asher? Please? I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the most recent photo, Asher sleeping in his crib. One tiny fist curled against his cheek, held it up so she could see but didn't let her touch the phone. Emma's face crumpled. He's so beautiful. Yeah, I said, and he is. Does he look like you? I don't know. He looks like himself. She nodded, wiped her eyes. Thank you for showing me. I put the phone away. Emma walked back to her car. I watched her go and still felt nothing. Drove home. To the rental, the neutral space that wasn't home yet, but was better than the hotel. Asher was with a babysitter, a lovely older woman named Margaret, who Victoria had helped me find. She smiled when I walked in. He's been perfect, she reported. Took both bottles, napped well. He's just waking up now. I paid her, thanked her, closed the door behind her. Went to the nursery. Asher was indeed awake, making those small stretching motions babies do. I picked him up, held him against my chest. Hey, buddy. I said. Guess what? Your mom gets to visit you twice a week now. He made a sound that might have been interest or might have been gas. Don't worry, I continued. I won't let her hurt you. Won't let anyone hurt you. That's my job now. Protecting you from all the ways people can break each other. He looked up at me with those dark, unfocused eyes. We're going to be okay, I told him, told myself. This is just the start. There's more to do, more truth to reveal, more justice to pursue, but we're going to be okay. I carried him to the living room, sat on the couch with him in my lap while the sun set outside and the room darkened around us. My phone buzzed, a text from Michael. Can we talk? Please, I need to explain. I deleted it without responding. Another buzz, Emma. First visit is Thursday at 2 p.m. Where should I go? I typed back an address. Not my home address. The address of a family services center where supervised visits happened. Let her go there. Let her sit in an office with a social worker watching while she held our son for 3 hours. Let her feel how little access she had now. The appointments would be supervised by a social worker, documented, observed. Every interaction recorded in case we ended up back in court. Good. Let everything be documented. Let nothing be hidden anymore. I looked them down at Asher, at his perfect, peaceful face, at the son who'd been born into chaos and didn't know it yet. I'm going to tell you everything when you're older, I said quietly. Your mother won't want me to. Everyone will say I should protect you from the ugly truth, but I'm going to tell you anyway. You deserve to know how you came into this world. What was sacrificed? What was broken? What was saved? He yawned. Not yet, though, I added. Right now, you just get to be a baby, get to eat and sleep and not understand any of this mess. That's your job for now. My phone buzzed again. Victoria, rough outcome, but we can work with it. The documentation continues. Everything she does during visitation, everything she says, we record it. Build the case for eventual full custody. Stay strong. Stay strong, right, because this wasn't over. The custody hearing was just round one. The divorce still had to be finalized. Assets still had to be divided. And through it all, I had to remain calm, collected, focused. Had to be the better parent, the stable one, the one who put Asher first. Even when what I really wanted, was to burn it all down. But I couldn't do that. Couldn't be destructive no matter how much I wanted to. Had to be constructive, deliberate, surgical. Had to wait. So I waited. Waited through Emma's first supervised visit, where she cried the entire 3 hours while holding Asher, begging him to remember her. Waited through her second visit where she tried to act normal, cheerful, like this was just a regular mother-baby bonding time and not a court-ordered obligation under surveillance. Waited through Michael's attempts to reach me, calls, texts, showing up at my office until I had security remove him. Waited through my own parents' gentle suggestions that maybe I was being too harsh, too unforgiving, that families should find a way to heal. I smiled and nodded and ignored them all, because I wasn't healing. I was planning. Victoria and I met weekly, reviewing the divorce terms. Emma wanted the apartment. Fine, she could have it. Wanted half the savings. Fine, but I kept my business assets separate. Wanted joint custody, eventually. Not fine, never fine. We'd fight that every step of the way. What about the affair partner? Victoria asked during one session. Michael, are you pursuing any legal action against him? What would that accomplish? In some states, you can sue a third party for alienation of affection. It's rare, but it sends a message. I considered it. Imagined Michael in court, forced to answer questions about the affair, about his relationship with Emma, about his role in destroying my marriage. No, I said finally. I have something better in mind. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Care to share? Not yet, because what I had planned for Michael wasn't legal action. It wasn't a lawsuit or a public scandal or anything that could be documented in court records. It was simpler than that. It was truth, quiet, devastating truth. See, Michael worked for our father's construction company, had worked there since graduating college, moving up from general laborer to project manager over the years. It was family business, literally. My dad had built it from nothing, and Michael was supposed to take over eventually. That was his future, his career, his legacy. And it depended entirely on my father's goodwill. Our father, who didn't know about the affair yet, who thought Michael was just being a supportive brother during my difficult divorce, who'd texted me multiple times asking what happened, why Emma and I were splitting, if there was any chance of reconciliation. I'd been vague in my responses. Said we'd grown apart. Said it was complicated. Said I'd rather not discuss it. Let him wonder. Let him ask Michael, who I knew was also being vague. Let them both think the secret was safe. Then, 6 weeks after Asher was born, I drove to my parents' house, brought Asher with me. Let my mother hold her grandson for the first time while my father hovered nearby, making awkward grandfather noises. He's beautiful, my mother said, tears in her eyes. Daniel, he's perfect. He is, I agreed. We had dinner. Normal conversation. How was work? How was I managing alone? Did I need help with anything? I played the part of the exhausted but coping single father. Let them think that was the extent of my struggles. After dinner, after my mother had taken Asher for his evening bottle and disappeared into the nursery to bond, I sat with my father in his study. I need to tell you something, I said. He looked concerned. Is everything okay? With the baby? Asher's fine. This is about something else. I told him everything, kept my voice level, factual. Told him about coming home from Singapore, about finding Michael at the hospital with flowers, about the paternity test, about the phone records and emails and 18 months of systematic deception. My father's face went through stages: confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally, something that looked like grief. Michael, he said, not a question, a statement, a realization. And Emma. He was quiet for a long time. Then, you're sure? You're absolutely sure? I pulled out my phone, showed him the documentation. Not all of it, I wasn't cruel, but enough. Enough to prove it was real. My father read through it with shaking hands. When he finished, he set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. I'm sorry, he said. Daniel, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. He's my son. I raised him, taught him better than this. He looked up at me and his eyes were red. What do you need? What can I do? Nothing, I said. I just needed you to know the truth. But that wasn't entirely accurate. Because what I knew, what I was counting on, was that my father wouldn't do nothing. My father, who'd built his business on integrity and reputation and the idea that a Chen keeps his word, who'd taught us both that character matters, that honor matters, that you don't betray family. Michael had violated all of that, and my father wouldn't let it stand. 3 days later, Michael was fired. Not immediately. My father did it carefully, professionally, but he did it. Called Michael into his office, laid out the situation, and told him he was being removed from the company effective immediately. I know because Michael called me after. Left a voicemail, his voice shaking with rage and hurt. You told him. You fucking told him. I just lost everything, Daniel. My job, my future, everything Dad promised me. All because you couldn't just let it go. You got full custody. You got the baby. Wasn't that enough? Did you have to take this too? I listened to the voicemail twice, then deleted it. 'Cause no, it wasn't enough. Nothing would ever be enough. Not until everyone involved understood exactly what they'd done, what they'd destroyed, what they'd cost. Emma found out, of course, and called me furious. Michael lost his job because of you. Because you told your father. How could you? He's your brother. He stopped being my brother when he started fucking my wife, I replied calmly. You're being vindictive, using your family connections to destroy him because you can't handle what? I interrupted. Can't handle that my wife and brother betrayed me for 18 months? Can't handle that I flew around the world, To meet my son and found out everything I believed was a lie? What exactly should I handle better, Emma? She didn't have an answer. The supervised visits continue, I said. Follow the court order. Be a good mother during those 3 hours. That's all I need from you. I hung up. Emma's family tried intervening. Patricia called, asking me to reconsider. Kate sent a long email about forgiveness and moving forward. Even Emma's aunt showed up at the Family Services Center during one of the supervised visits, trying to talk to me in the waiting room. I was polite, professional, immovable. This isn't about punishment, I told Kate when she cornered me outside my office one day. This is about consequences. Your sister made choices, so did Michael. I didn't force them to do anything. I'm just making sure everyone knows what those choices were. You're tearing our families apart, she said. I'm not tearing anything apart, I corrected. It was already torn. I'm just refusing to pretend it wasn't. The weeks passed. Asher grew, started to focus his eyes, track movement, respond to voices. He'd smile when I picked him up in the mornings, would calm down when I held him, started to recognize me as his primary person, his safe place. Emma noticed during the visits. I could see it in her face, the realization that Asher didn't know her the same way, that he was bonding with me, not her, that every week she missed of his early life was a week she'd never get back. She tried to hide it, tried to make the visits positive, engaging, full of the kind of desperate cheer that comes from knowing you're losing something. But she was losing him, and she knew it. 3 months after the initial custody hearing, we went back to court for the review. Judge Reeves reviewed the documentation from the supervised visits, interviewed the social workers, examined my continued evidence of primary caregiving. Mrs. Chen, she said, the social workers report that your visits have been appropriate. You've followed all guidelines. Asher appears comfortable with you? Emma's face lit up with hope. However, Judge Reeves continued, Mr. Chen continues to be the primary caregiver. Asher's routine, his medical care, his development, all of it centers on his father. And at 3 months old, stability is paramount. Therefore, I'm going to continue the current arrangement. Primary custody remains with Mr. Chen. Your visits increase to 3 times per week, 4 hours each, still supervised. We'll review again in 3 months. The hope in Emma's face died. This time I felt something. Not satisfaction exactly, but recognition. The system was working the way it was supposed to, rewarding stability, rewarding the parent who'd been present, rewarding me. After court, Victoria was jubilant. This is excellent. By the time Asher's a year old, the custody arrangement will be so established that changing it would be nearly impossible. You've effectively won. What about the divorce? Finalizing next month. The adultery ground's stuck. She's not getting spousal support. Assets divided mostly in your favor. You'll pay child support, but given that you have primary custody, it's minimal. Overall, Daniel, you've come out of this better than most people in your situation. Better than most. I suppose that was true. I had my son, had my business, had removed the toxic people from my life with surgical precision, had made everyone understand that actions have consequences. So why did I still feel hollow? That night, I sat in Asher's room while he slept, watched his tiny chest rise and fall, his small hands curled near his face. He looked peaceful, innocent, untouched by all the ugliness that surrounded his birth. You're going to be okay, I told him quietly. I'm going to make sure of it. You're going to grow up knowing your worth, knowing that people can't just use you, betray you, and expect to get away with it. You're going to be strong. He shifted in his sleep, made a small sound. Your mother loves you, I continued. I won't tell you she doesn't, but she made choices that hurt a lot of people, and those choices have consequences. Understanding that love doesn't erase damage, that's important. I stood, adjusted his blanket, made sure the monitor was on. And your uncle, I said. Michael, he won't be in your life much. I'm going to make sure of that. Not because I'm cruel, but because some betrayals are too fundamental to recover from. He'll always be your biological uncle, but that's all. He won't get to pretend to be family after what he did. I left the nursery, closed the door softly behind me. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Drink tomorrow? You sound like you need one. He was right. I did. But there was still more to do. The divorce finalized on a Tuesday. Anticlimactic, really. After months of legal maneuvering, of documentation and arguments and court appearances, it came down to signing papers in Victoria's office while Emma sat across the table with Sharon, both of us carefully not looking at each other. Marriage dissolved, Victoria said, efficient as always. Asset division as agreed, custody arrangement formalized, child support calculated and set. Anything else? Emma's voice was small. Can I see him after this? Can I have an extra visit? I looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time in months, she'd lost more weight, had circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide, looked like someone who'd been hollowed out from the inside. No, I said. Daniel, please. Just an hour. I just signed away my marriage. You signed away a marriage you destroyed, I interrupted. The custody arrangement stands. 3 visits a week, 4 hours each. That's what the court ordered. Sharon put a hand on Emma's arm, stopping her from saying whatever she was about to say. We left separately. Emma and Sharon through one door, Victoria and me through another, professional to the end. In the parking garage, Victoria turned to me. You know what you need to do now? What? Move on. You've won. You have Asher. You have your assets. You've removed the toxic people from your life. Now you move on. Build something new. Move on, as if it were that simple. As if I could just close this chapter and start fresh, unburdened by everything that had happened. But Victoria was right about one thing. I had won. By every measurable metric, I'd achieved what I set out to achieve. Emma was limited to supervised visits. Michael was out of my life, out of his job, probably struggling to figure out what to do with his future now that the family business was closed to him. My parents knew the truth. Everyone knew the truth. Justice, served quietly and completely. So why did it feel unfinished? I drove home. And it was home now, not just a rental. I'd signed a longer lease, put up photos, made it ours. Asher's 4-month checkup was that afternoon, and the babysitter had agreed to bring him. Margaret met me at the pediatrician's office, Asher bundled in his carrier. He's been wonderful, she reported. Took his bottle, had a good nap, ready for his shots, poor thing. I took him from her. He looked up at me and smiled, a real, genuine smile now. He'd been doing that more lately. Smiling when he saw me, making sounds that weren't quite words but were headed that direction, reaching for me with his tiny hands. The checkup went well. Asher was in the 75th percentile for weight, 80th for height, hitting all his milestones. The pediatrician, Dr. Rodriguez, a kind woman with teenagers of her own, smiled at me. You're doing a great job, she said. Single parenting isn't easy, but Asher's thriving. You should be proud. Thank you. And Mom, is she involved? Limited supervised visitation, I said. Kept my voice neutral. It's a complicated situation. Dr. Rodriguez nodded, understanding what I wasn't saying. Well, Asher's lucky to have such a devoted father. After the appointment, I took him to the park. It was one of those perfect autumn days, cool but sunny, leaves turning gold and red. I pushed him in the baby swing, watched him laugh at the motion, and tried to figure out what came next. Because Victoria was right. The legal battle was over. The revenge was complete. Everyone involved had paid their price. But I still woke up angry, still spent my nights reviewing the evidence, the emails, the phone records. Still caught myself checking Emma's social media. She'd locked it down, made everything private. But I knew people who knew people. Heard through the grapevine that she'd moved in with her mother, that she was seeing a therapist, that she was struggling. Good. No, not good. I didn't know what I felt anymore. Your dad's a mess, I told Asher, lifting him out of the swing. But we're figuring it out, right? He grabbed my nose, his new favorite game. My phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. Daniel Chen? Speaking. This is Father Thomas Morrison from St. Benedict's. I'm calling about your brother, Michael. My stomach dropped. Is he okay? Physically, yes. But Daniel, he came to me last week. He's struggling with guilt, with shame, with what he did to you. I know it's not my place to intervene in family matters, but I wondered if you'd be willing to meet with him. Under mediation. Just to talk. No. I understand you're angry. You don't understand anything, I cut him off. You don't understand what he did, what they both did. You don't understand what it's like to build a life with someone and find out it was a lie. You don't understand. I stopped, took a breath. Asher was looking at me with wide eyes, confused by my tone. I appreciate the call, I said more calmly. But no, I'm not interested in reconciliation or mediation or whatever this is. Tell Michael to move on with his life. That's what I'm doing. Sometimes moving on means finding forgiveness, Father Morrison said gently. And sometimes it means accepting that some things can't be forgiven. I hung up, looked down at Asher. Sorry, buddy. Daddy's still working through some stuff. He reached for my face again, grabbed my lip this time, pulled. It should have hurt, but it just made me laugh. You're going to be such a handful when you're older, I told him. We walked home. I made his bottle, fed him, put him down for his afternoon nap. Stood in the doorway of his nursery and watched him sleep like I did every day, making sure he was real, making sure this was real, my son, my life, built from the wreckage. But still wreckage. That night, after Asher was asleep for the night, I sat at my laptop, opened the folder I'd been building for months, all the documentation, all the evidence, the complete record of Emma and Michael's affair. I'd shown it to the people who needed to see it. The court, my lawyer, my father. But there was one person I hadn't shown it to yet. Michael himself. He knew what he'd done, obviously. But he didn't know that I knew everything. Didn't know about the emails I'd found. Didn't know about the credit card records, the hotel visits, the canceled appointments. Didn't know the full scope of how thoroughly I'd documented his betrayal. I could send it to him. Could forward him the entire folder. Let him see himself through my eyes, every lie cataloged, every moment of deception preserved. Let him understand exactly how completely he'd been caught. Would it accomplish anything? Probably not. Would it make me feel better? I didn't know. My cursor hovered over the send button. Then I closed the laptop. Because Father Morrison was wrong about forgiveness. But he was right about one thing. At some point, you have to stop looking backward. Stop picking at the wound. Stop feeding the anger. Not for their sake. For yours. For Asher's. I couldn't spend the rest of my life focused on what Emma and Michael had done. Couldn't let their betrayal define every choice I made, every relationship I built, every moment of joy I might have. That wasn't justice. That was just another kind of prison. So I didn't send the email. Didn't reach out to Michael or Emma beyond the required custody exchanges. Just stopped. Started focusing on building instead of destroying. Started taking Asher to music classes for babies. One of those ridiculous things where parents sit in a circle while someone plays guitar and everyone pretends the infants care. But Asher seemed to like it. Would stare at the guitar, make sounds when the music played. Started reconnecting with friends I'd neglected during the marriage, during the affair, during the revenge. Marcus, obviously. But others too. College friends who'd drifted away. Work colleagues who'd given me space and were willing to grab lunch now that I seemed functional again. Started, tentatively, to think about dating eventually. Not now. God, not now. But someday, when Asher was older. When I'd done enough therapy to not project all my trust issues onto whoever was unlucky enough to be interested. Started living. Emma noticed during the visits. I could see it in her face. Confusion that I wasn't angry anymore. That I could hand over Asher for her supervised time without commentary, without coldness, without any of the emotional warfare she'd been expecting. You seem better, she said one day, carefully, during the handoff. I am. That's good. I'm glad. I didn't respond to that. Just gave her the diaper bag, reminded her about Asher's feeding schedule left. Professional. Cordial. Empty of everything that used to be between us. Michael tried reaching out once more, about 6 months after the divorce finalized. Sent a letter, actual paper, actual stamp. Like it was the 1990s. Daniel, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to ask for anything from you. But I need to say this, even if you never respond. I'm sorry. Not just for the affair, for all of it. For betraying you. For lying to you. For taking advantage of your trust and your absence and your assumption that the people who loved you would never hurt you that way. I told myself it was love. That what Emma and I had was real enough, important enough, to justify what we were doing. I told myself you'd understand eventually. That somehow this would all work out. I was wrong. It wasn't love, it was selfishness. It was weakness. It was me taking something I wanted without thinking about the cost. And the cost was you, my brother, my best friend, the person I've known longer than anyone except our parents. I destroyed that. Destroyed us. And I can't fix it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just asking that someday maybe you'll let Asher know me. Not as anything important, not as Uncle Michael, who's part of his life, just as someone who exists, someone who made terrible mistakes, but who still cares about him because he's part of you. I don't expect a response. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know I'm sorry, Michael. I read the letter 3 times, then put it in a drawer. Didn't respond, didn't call, didn't acknowledge it at all. But I kept it. Not for Michael, for Asher. Someday, when he was old enough to ask questions, to wonder about the uncle he didn't know, to piece together the fractured family tree he'd been born into. Someday I'd show him this letter. Let him decide what it meant. Let him decide if forgiveness was possible, or necessary, or even worth pursuing. That was his choice to make, not mine. Asher's first birthday came faster than I expected. I threw him a party. Small, just Marcus, a few friends from the baby music class, the pediatrician who'd been so supportive. No family, no Emma, though her supervised visit that week fell on his actual birthday, and I let her bring a present. She'd brought a stuffed elephant. Asher had ignored it in favor of the wrapping paper. "He's so big," Emma had said, watching him. "I can't believe he's one already. Time moves fast." "Daniel," she'd looked at me then, really looked at me. "Are you happy? I mean, genuinely, are you okay?" The question surprised me. "Why do you care?" "Because you're the father of my son. Because we spent years together. Because even though I destroyed us, I still care if you're okay." I'd thought about it. Was I happy? Not the way I'd been before. Not that naive, trusting happiness that comes from believing the world is fundamentally good and people won't hurt you. But I was content. I was stable. I had Asher, had my work, had a life that felt manageable, even if it wasn't what I'd planned. "I'm okay," I told her. "We're okay." She'd nodded. Looked like she wanted to say more, but didn't. Now, at the party, I watched Asher demolish his first cupcake, face covered in frosting, hands grabbing everything, delighted by the mess. Marcus was filming it, laughing. Other parents were taking photos. It was normal, joyful. This was what moving on looked like. Not forgetting, not erasing what happened, but building something new on top of it. Something that didn't require constant anger to fuel it. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Happy birthday to Asher. Tell him his Uncle Michael loves him, even if he doesn't know me yet." I stared at that text for a long moment, then deleted it. Some boundaries weren't meant to be crossed. But that night, after the party, after Asher was asleep in his crib wearing his birthday boy outfit, I pulled out Michael's letter again. "Read it one more time. I'm sorry." Words were cheap, and actions were what mattered. And Michael's actions had destroyed everything, but someday, not today, not this year, maybe not for many years. Someday Asher would ask about his family, about why he only had one grandparent who visited, one parent who was really present, one uncle he'd never met. And I'd tell him the truth. Not the sanitized version, not the adults grew apart version. The real truth. That people are complicated. That love doesn't always look like it should. That betrayal can come from the people you trust most. That justice matters, but so does knowing when to stop pursuing it. That his father had been hurt badly, had fought back hard, and had eventually chosen to build instead of destroy. I put the letter back in the drawer, went to check on Asher one more time before bed. He was sleeping peacefully, 1 year old, innocent of all the chaos that had surrounded his arrival. He'd have his 3 weekly visits with his mother. He'd grow up knowing she loved him, even if their relationship was complicated. He'd hear stories about his uncle someday, probably. Would make his own decisions about what those relationships meant. That was the best I could do. Give him the truth, give him stability. Give him a father who'd been broken but had refused to stay broken. "Happy birthday, buddy," I whispered. "Year 1 done. Here's to year 2, being boring and normal, and exactly what you deserve." He shifted in his sleep, didn't wake. I stood there watching him, this tiny person who'd saved me even though he didn't know it. Who'd given me something to fight for when everything else felt hopeless. And I realized something. The revenge was over. The anger was fading. The life I thought I was building with Emma, that was gone. But this life, this new life with Asher, this was better. Not because of what I'd taken from Emma and Michael. Not because of the custody victory or the divorce settlement or the quiet dismantling of Michael's future. Better because it was real. No lies, no deception, no wondering if the person sleeping next to me was thinking about someone else. Just me and my son figuring it out together. That was enough. More than enough. 2 years later, Asher was 3 years old, talking in full sentences, obsessed with dinosaurs and construction vehicles. We'd moved out of the rental into a house, nothing huge, but ours. A backyard where he could play. A neighborhood with other kids. A place that felt permanent. Emma's visits had transitioned to unsupervised about a year ago. She picked him up every Tuesday and Thursday evening every other weekend. Followed the custody arrangement perfectly. Had rebuilt her life in the way people do when they have no other choice. She worked now. Office manager for a dental practice. Nothing glamorous, but stable. Had her own apartment. Went to therapy regularly, which I knew because her lawyer had submitted the records during one of our custody reviews, trying to show she was doing the work. She was doing the work. I could see it in how she interacted with Asher. More present, more engaged, not trying to be the Disney mom who bought his affection with gifts and treats. Just being a mother, reading to him, taking him to the park, making him eat his vegetables, even when he protested. It was almost enough to make me forget what she'd done. Almost. Michael I hadn't seen in 2 years. Heard through my mother, who'd maintained a relationship with him despite everything, that he'd moved to another state. Oregon or Washington, something on the West Coast. Was working construction, ironically. Not running a company like he would have if he'd stayed in Dad's business, but working with his hands, starting over. Good. Let him start over far away from us. My father had never quite forgiven him. They spoke occasionally, my mother insisted on it and refused to lose another son completely, but the relationship was fractured. Would probably stay fractured. Some betrayals are too fundamental. I'd started dating. Her name was Sophia. We'd met at one of Asher's preschool events. She was a teacher there, early 30s. Warm smile, no patience for bullshit. We'd been together about 6 months. Taking it slow. She knew my history. Knew about Emma and Michael. Knew I had trust issues the size of Montana. She was patient about it. Didn't push. Didn't demand access to my phone or constant reassurance. Just showed up. Was honest. Did what she said she'd do. Novel concepts. Asher liked her. That was important. He called her Miss Sophia and would tell her elaborate stories about his toy dinosaurs eating his toy trucks. She'd listen like it was the most fascinating thing she'd ever heard. We hadn't talked about moving in together, hadn't talked about marriage, weren't sure we would. Sometimes the best relationship is the one that doesn't try to be more than it is, but it was nice. Having someone, trusting someone, slowly, carefully rebuilding the part of me that believed people could be decent. Emma had seen Sophia once, during a pickup. Had given her a long look, but hadn't commented. Later, she'd texted me. "She seems nice. I'm glad you're moving on." I hadn't responded. Wasn't sure what to say to that. Thanks for approving. Thanks for the permission I didn't need. Marcus threw a barbecue one Saturday. Big backyard, his new wife playing hostess, a handful of friends from work and college. Sophia came with me. Asher ran around with Marcus's nephew, both of them covered in grass stains and joy. "Look at you," Marcus said, handing me a beer. "Almost normal." "Almost," I agreed. "You ever think about what happened, about Emma and Michael?" "Sometimes." "Still angry?" I considered that. Not angry, just aware. Like I know that people can do terrible things, but I don't think about them much anymore. That's growth, my friend. Maybe it was. Or maybe it was just exhaustion. Maybe you can only sustain rage for so long before it either consumes you or you have to let it go. I'd chosen to let it go. Not forgiveness, exactly. More like acceptance. They'd done what they'd done. I'd responded how I'd responded. And now we were all living with the consequences. That night, tucking Asher into bed, he looked up at me with those serious dark eyes he'd inherited from Emma. "Daddy?" "Yeah, buddy?" "Why don't I have an uncle? Tommy at school has 3 uncles." There it was. The question I'd been preparing for but still wasn't ready to answer. "You do have an uncle," I said carefully. You just don't see him much. Why not? Because how did you explain betrayal to a 3-year-old? How did you talk about adult failures and broken trust? Because sometimes adults make mistakes that hurt other adults. And when that happens, those adults need space from each other. Did Uncle Michael make a mistake? Interesting. He knew Michael's name. I'd never mentioned it, which meant Emma must have. Yes, I said, he did. A big mistake? Very big. Did he say sorry? He did. Did you forgive him? I looked at my son, at his honest question, his assumption that sorry plus forgiveness equals resolution, the way kids think the world works. Not yet, I said. Maybe someday, but not yet. Okay. He accepted this easily, the way kids accept everything. Can you read me the dinosaur book? Sure, buddy. I read him the dinosaur book, kissed his forehead, turned on his nightlight, did the routine that we'd built together over 3 years. In the living room, Sophia was on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I came in. He asked about Michael? How'd you know? He's been asking Emma about him too. She mentioned it during pickup. Wanted to know if you'd want to talk about it. Of course, Emma wanted to talk about it. Probably wanted to coordinate our story, make sure we weren't giving Asher conflicting information. What did you tell her? That you'd discuss it with her when you were ready. I sat down next to Sophia. I don't want to discuss it with her. I know, but I probably should. Probably. We sat in silence for a while. Then Sophia said, You know what's interesting? You're so focused on how they betrayed you that you've never stopped to think about how they betrayed themselves. What do you mean? Emma destroyed her marriage, lost primary custody of her son, damaged her relationship with her entire family. And Michael? Lost his brother, his job, his future. They didn't just hurt you, Daniel. They imploded their own lives. I hadn't thought about it that way. And they have to live with that every day, Sophia continued. You got to be angry and righteous and do all this revenge stuff. But they just have to sit with their guilt forever. That's its own kind of punishment. You think I should forgive them? I think you should consider that maybe you don't need to make a decision about forgiveness at all. Maybe you just let them exist in their consequences while you exist in your life, and you stop spending energy on the question. She was right. Of course she was right. I'd spent 3 years focused on what Emma and Michael had done, on documenting it, on fighting back, and on making sure everyone knew the truth, on being justified and righteous and victimized. And somewhere in all of that, I'd become someone I didn't particularly like. Not the destroyed, broken Daniel from the hospital, but not the trusting, open Daniel from before either. Someone harder, more cynical, more focused on justice than on joy. Asher deserved better than that. I should talk to Emma, I said, about Michael, about what we tell Asher. Probably. I don't want to. I know, but I'm going to anyway. Sophia smiled, kissed my cheek. Look at you, growing. I texted Emma that night. We need to talk about what we're telling Asher about Michael. Her response came immediately, like she'd been waiting. Yes? When? Coffee tomorrow? Usual place? The usual place was a cafe near the Family Services Center where the supervised visits used to happen. Neutral ground. Public enough that we'd both behave. I'll be there. I met her at 10 a.m. She was already sitting at a corner table, 2 coffees in front of her. Still remembered my order. Black, 1 sugar. Thanks for agreeing to this, she said as I sat down. He's asking questions? We should be on the same page. Okay. She fidgeted with her coffee cup. What do you want to tell him? The truth. Age-appropriate version, but the truth. Emma paled. Daniel, he's 3. He doesn't need to know about... Not now, I interrupted, but eventually, when he's older. When he can understand, I'm not going to lie to him about his family. What truth, though? What version? That you and I were married, that we had problems, that Uncle Michael and you became close in a way that hurt me, that we got divorced because of it, that people make mistakes. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, that's fair. Is it? I didn't know why I asked. Didn't know what answer I wanted. Fairer than I deserve, she said quietly. I thought I was afraid you'd tell him I was a villain, that Michael was a villain, that we destroyed everything on purpose. Did you? No. She looked up at me. We were selfish and weak, and we made terrible choices. But we didn't sit down and plan to hurt you. We didn't want to destroy our families. We just We wanted what we wanted and didn't think about the cost until it was too late. That's not better, Emma. I know. We drank our coffee in silence for a while. The cafe hummed around us, other people having normal conversations, it's normal problems. A couple arguing about weekend plans, a student typing furiously on a laptop, a barista making drinks with practiced efficiency. Finally, Emma said, "Are you happy? Why does everyone keep asking me that?" "Because I want to know if I destroyed you completely or if there's something left." I looked at her, really looked at her. She was different too, less polished than she'd been during our marriage, more real. She'd stopped highlighting her hair, let it go back to its natural dark brown, had lines around her eyes that weren't there before, looked tired but not broken. "There's something left," I said. "I'm rebuilding. It's different than what we had, but it's mine." "Good." She meant it, I could tell. "That's good. And you?" She smiled sadly. "I'm okay. Working on myself, therapy twice a week, trying to be a better person than I was. Better mother? That too. Asher deserves better than the mother who missed appointments and lied to his father." It was the closest she'd come to directly acknowledging what she'd done. Not hiding behind euphemisms or passive language, just stating it plainly. "He's a good kid," I said. "He is. You've done a great job with him." "We both have. The visits. You're good with him, Emma. I can see that." She looked surprised, like she'd been expecting criticism and got something else instead. "Does that mean, would you consider expanding the custody arrangement? More time? No? Oh." The hope that had flickered in her face died. "Not because you're not capable," I clarified, "but because Asher's routine is established. His school, his friends, his life, it's all here. Disrupting that now would only hurt him." "Right, of course. But when he's older, when he can handle more flexibility, we can revisit it." Emma nodded, blinked back tears. "Thank you for not shutting that door completely." I finished my coffee, started to stand. "Daniel?" She stopped me. "I really am sorry. I know I've said it before, but I need you to know I mean it. What I did to you, to us, and to Asher, I'll regret it forever." "I know. Do you—" She hesitated. "Do you think you'll ever forgive me?" I thought about Sophia's words, about living in consequences, about spending energy on questions that didn't need answers. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe, maybe not, but I don't think about it much anymore. I'm more focused on moving forward than looking back." "That's probably healthy. Probably." I left the cafe, drove to pick up Asher from preschool. He ran to me when I walked in, showed me a painting he'd made. Dinosaurs eating trees, or possibly trees eating dinosaurs. It was hard to tell. "It's beautiful," I told him. "Can we hang it on the fridge?" "Absolutely." We went home, had lunch, read books, played with his trucks in the backyard while the afternoon sun turned everything golden. Normal things, good things, the life we'd built. That night, after Asher was asleep, I pulled out Michael's letter one more time, the one he'd sent 2 years ago, the one I'd kept in a drawer. Read it again with new eyes. "I'm just asking that someday. Maybe you'll let Asher know me. Not asking for reconciliation, not asking for friendship, just asking not to be completely erased from his nephew's life." It was a small ask, probably more than he deserved, but small nonetheless. I put the letter back, but this time I didn't close the drawer all the way. Left it open a crack. Not now, not soon, but someday, maybe. When Asher was old enough to decide for himself if he wanted to know his uncle. When enough time had passed that the wounds weren't quite so fresh. When I was secure enough in who I'd become that Michael's presence didn't threaten it. That day wasn't today, but it might come. And leaving the drawer open, leaving that possibility open, felt like a different kind of justice. Not revenge, not destruction. Just the acknowledgement that people can change, that time can heal, that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is choose not to choose. Let the future decide. I went to bed. Sophia was reading, wearing one of my t-shirts. She looked up when I came in. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said, and meant it. "I'm okay." She turned off the light. We settled into sleep, her warmth against my side, the house quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning and the occasional sound of Asher shifting in his room down the hall. My family. Not the one I'd planned for, Not the one I'd thought I was building with Emma all those years ago, but mine, real, honest, built on truth instead of lies. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.